Are you doing the lion's share of the household labor? What do I mean by household labor? I mean all the dishes, the laundry, the cleaning in general. I mean scheduling the doctor's appointments, knowing whose doctors are whose if you've got kids. All of the meal planning, the grocery shopping, just all of the stuff, the household labor, the stuff that it takes to run your household. Some of this labor is very visible, like the laundry, right? We notice when we don't have clean underwear. And some of this labor is very invisible, like knowing when teacher conference days are, right? Or knowing that your kid's pants are getting too short because you're noticing that or whatever, right? Like there is visible labor and there's invisible labor. And there is a ton of it when you are living in the world, right? Now, it doesn't matter if maybe you have a family that you live with, maybe you have roommates that you live with. If you live alone, maybe this video isn't for you, but if you live with other people, this video definitely is for you, because I want to talk about how we manage and equitably distribute this labor in a way that feels good to everyone in the household. Because a lot of times it's one parent, and frequently that's the mom that is taking on the lion's share of this stuff. I know that one thing during the pandemic, I was coaching all of these people who were had just had babies, right? They were either on maternity leave or coming back from it, or paternity leave, coming back, and all these people had just had kids. And one thing was incredibly surprising to me, and that was that they had never had a conversation, most of these people, about labor, right? They'd never had a conversation about what it was going to take to manage all of the household labor. And if there's anything that you need to know about babies, it is that they come with a lot of work, right? Suddenly, the workload in your house explodes when you have a baby. Now, even if you're living with other people, that doesn't mean you don't have a high workload. You do. But this is one change that really changes things. And I was thinking about this recently because one of my kids left the house to go to school, and my kids have a lot of chores. Like, we distribute that labor in our household, right? We all have different things that we take care of. And so while one of my kids was leaving, of course, my heart is a big hole now because he's no longer here, but also it meant that there were a bunch of chores that were left in the ether, right? That I didn't want to pick up all the slack. I'm not going to be the martyr. I'm not going to take on all of the work. And it was time for me, my husband, and my other kid to renegotiate, right? We had these chores that my kid was doing, and we needed to figure out how we were going to renegotiate that so that it was spread in an equitable manner. So the main chores that my kid, who's no longer in our house, had were he was responsible for setting the table. He was responsible for doing all the hand washing of dishes and knives that can't be put in the dishwasher. He was responsible for loading the dishwasher. He was taking out the garbage and taking out the recycle. He was folding all of the towels and that sort of thing in our house, right? So he had a bunch of chores that he was responsible for. We needed to figure out how we were going to split those up. And so we talked about it as a family, and, we each took some things on. So, I took on setting the table because I was already making dinner. That seemed reasonable. My older son took on the garbage and the recycle. He was already doing the compost, so that made sense. And, I was already doing laundry for myself, so I took on the textiles, and my husband took on doing all of the hand washing dishes and all of the kind of nightly dishwasher stuff, right? So we all just kind of redistributed it. But it got me thinking, I don't know if most people are doing this, right? I don't know if most people are renegotiating labor as things in their family or their home lives change. And there are a lot of points in our lives that necessitate a renegotiation of labor. And so I've named two of them here already today, right? I said when a baby is born, right? Or maybe a foster kid comes into your house, right? But when another person enters your house, that's one time. When someone leaves your house. So this could be a kid going off to school, but it could also be one parent, like maybe you're getting divorced or something and a parent is leaving. Or it could be maybe a grandma used to live with you and they don't anymore, or whatever, right? It could be many things going on where you would need to renegotiate labor. But it could also be, maybe someone is suffering from a long-term illness in your family. And as a result of that, they can't take on what they were taking on before. Maybe it's when your kids age. I think my kids probably hate this, but every New Year's, they're older and they are more responsible, and therefore they get more chores, right? They they get more things put onto their plate because they're capable of more. So these are just some of the ways that we renegotiate this. Another change that often happens in households is when work changes, right? So maybe someone goes from part-time to full-time or full-time to part-time, or, during the pandemic, we had some changes in our family because, I am a coach, so I'm often in calls with my coaching clients all day long or teaching workshops and things like that. So my schedule is more rigid than my husband's. He's an engineer and he didn't have as many meetings. And so he took on the bulk of kind of food prep and kid management during the day when we were during the pandemic because his schedule is more flexible. Whereas, that's something that I might have done in previous times when I had different jobs and my schedule was a different kind of flexible. Or, when I moved from being full-time to part-time, et cetera, these are all times that are rife for renegotiating the division of labor because changes have happened in your family. So I hope that I have convinced you that one person should not take on all the labor in the family, right, or in the household. And I hope that I have adequately convinced you that it is worth having conversations about this. But these conversations can sometimes be very difficult to have, right? It is not always so easy to talk about the division of labor in your household. And so what I want to share with you is a tool that I have built that I'm going to give to you for free. You can grab it in right down here in the comments. But it is a custom GPT and a little AI tool that is going to help you to figure out how to distribute the labor in your family and how to initially have those conversations. And so what it does is it takes a lot of the guesswork out of it for you. So in this tool, it is just going to ask you, who's in your family? What ages are they? Do you have pets? That sort of thing. And what skills does each person have? What are the things they hate doing? What are the things they don't mind doing? It's going to just ask you through some questions here. And then it's going to help you to develop a starting point, right? A starting point from which you can move forward and have a conversation and say, does this work for us to split these things up in this way, right? And so, in my family, we have done this a lot of times, and we each have buckets of responsibility. So for me, I really like cooking, and so food is my responsibility. I do the grocery shopping, I make sure things are stocked, I do the cooking, I do the meal planning, etc. But, travel planning, I hate that stuff. That is my husband's realm, right? He is really good at tracking flights and making sure we're getting the best deals on things and those logistics. And he likes, I don't know if he likes doing that, but he's good at doing it and he does it. And so he does that. I don't handle that at all. And so when we are able to talk about these household responsibilities and we're able to distribute them in a way that kind of works for our family, and then when we're able to renegotiate this as things change, suddenly we're working as a team where everyone is feeling good about the work that they're doing, right? No, we don't all want to do chores, but we feel a whole lot better about chores when we've spread them around in a way that is equitable and that works than when one person is doing them all or when we're kind of tit for tat doing them, right? So I have this tool for you. You can grab it right now and try it out. And I would encourage you to have these conversations. Now, if you have any thoughts around this, let me know down below. What works for you? I've talked about this kind of buckets of responsibility that works for me and my family. But how do you figure it out in your house? What works? Share in the comments because we can all learn from each other. And if you want more of this type of content in your feed, well, you know what to do. Go ahead and subscribe.